So I'd like to begin by reading from the book of Revelation, chapter 17 and verses 3 to 5. And this is the Apostle John speaking. I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and of earth's abomination. Now today I'm going to talk about one of the Bible's greatest mysteries that have puzzled scholars for centuries, and that is the topic of mystery Babylon. Just like the entity of the church to the Jews during Jesus' times and the rapture and the mark of the beast during our time, the topic of mystery Babylon is shrouded in mystery. Very little about it is understood. And if there is any understanding at all, it is controversial. However, we cannot afford to ignore it. It has many implications for Christians as we approach the end of this age, as we approach the end of the last days. Besides, the Bible has much to say about this topic of mystery Babylon. In 1859, Charles Dickens wrote the famous novel, A Tale of Two Cities. Now, it is set in the 18th century Paris and London. Now, this was the time of the French Revolution, where the street was bathed in blood. The Bible could also be said to be a tale of two cities, but not of London and Paris, but of Jerusalem and Babylon. Jerusalem is the capital city of ancient and modern Israel. And it also will be the capital city during Jesus Christ's 1,000-year reign on the earth. Babylon, on the other hand, is a symbol of evil and all that is in opposition to God and His purposes. It was at Babylon that the Tower of Babel is built. It was the Babylonians who destroyed the first temple of God, and it was to Babylon that the Jews were carried away into exile. And according to the book of Revelation, Babylon will rise again mysteriously in the last days. Babylon is a city that is most mentioned besides Jerusalem in the Old Testament and also in the book of Revelation. I understand that there are 404 verses in the book of Revelation, out of which 44 of them talks about Babylon. That is 10% of Revelation. Add to that, Revelation chapters 17 and 18 is all about mystery Babylon and her destruction. Just before the battle of Armageddon, when Christ Jesus will come again to destroy the Antichrist and his armies. So as you can see, the topic that is most talked about in the book of Revelation is Babylon. Mystery Babylon. Now I think most of you are surprised to hear that. Though much is said about it, attempts to understand mystery Babylon requires one to do a lot of research into the ancient histories from extra-biblical sources as well as studying the Bible. You have to connect the dots and put the pieces of the jigsaw puzzles together to make sense of its mysterious nature. Now, before I go any further, I want to remind you that today's sermon is part of the Money Matters series. Now, this is the last sermon and the climax of this series. Now, actually, this is the second last sermon because there is a part 2 to this sermon. So some of you will say, wow, what has Babylon got to do with Money Matters? Babylon, Money Matter. How does the two connect? What has Babylon got to do with money? A lot. If you look at these 2 verses in Revelation 14, verses 8 and 9, Another angel, a second, followed, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She who made all nations drink the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality. And another angel, a third, followed them, saying with a loud voice, If anyone worships the beast and its image and receive a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also will drink of the wine of God's wrath. Now, verse 9 is part of the text of my previous sermon, 666, the mark of the beast. And then if you look at verse 8, the verse before it, the verses before and after verse 8, about the fall of Babylon the Great, are all about the Antichrist and his financial or economic system. So you see the link there. And there are a lot of linkages. And when we read Revelation chapter 18, the entire chapter in its entirety, you will realize that Mystery Babylon has so much to do with the mark of the beast. Mystery Babylon has a lot to do with money matters. Now the title of today's sermon is The Final Collapse of the Economic System. The final collapse of the global economic system. Fallen is Babylon the Great. Wow, some of you will say that this is quite a bold title and a sweeping statement. The final collapse, not just the collapse, but the final collapse of global economic system. Now, it is certainly attention-catching, but that is neither my view nor my opinion. It is a revelation given to the Apostle John, which is recorded in Revelation chapters 17 and 18. It is a prophecy that you can understand easily. There is no need for much interpretation. It is described there very clearly. You read it and you understand that that is about the collapse of the global financial system, or rather the global economic and commercial system. God will judge the global economic system, which according to the Bible is part of the Mystery Babylon system. The economic Babylon system is an unrighteous system. It is wicked, abominable, and manipulative, according to the Word of God. It is manipulative, evil, and abominable in the eyes of God. Now the fall of Babylon, the fall of Mystery Babylon, is the longest prophecy in the New Testament. And it is described in detail. So it must be very important. Yes, it is important. It is very important. It is a big deal. Why? Let me give you two reasons. The first reason is that money, finance, and commerce dominate our lives. Money makes the world goes round. Now, that is a fact that you cannot deny. Your work, your employment, your business, and your daily lives revolve around money. You see, the value of your labor, the value of your work, of your business is all measured in monetary terms. No work means no money. No money means no food on the table. This is a survival issue. So this first point is easy to understand. The fall of Babylon, of economic Babylon, is a big deal. The first point is easy to understand. But the second point is not understood by most people. The international system of finance, trade, and commerce has tremendous controlling power. Now that is actually an understatement. To put it more accurately, it has absolute controlling power. The economic system controls everything. It controls the levers of power and influence at every level of society. It controls geopolitics and all human affairs. And that is why Jesus called money a master. Now, you don't have a strong nation if you do not have a strong economy. Singapore is a small country in terms of its population and size and land sizes. Now, despite of that, we are a strong country because we have a sizable financial reserve, and also we are economically strong and viable. You cannot have a strong military if a country is economically weak. Likewise, you cannot have a strong currency, you cannot have a strong national identity, you cannot have a strong social cohesion if a country is economically weak. You see, money controls everything. Let me quote Meyer Amschel Rothschild again. He's the godfather of the Rothschild banking cartel in the 18th century. And he famously says this word: "Give me control of a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its law." Give me control of a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its law. You see, unknown to most people, a handful of the ultra-rich and extremely powerful people are exerting disproportionate control over the global economic system. The 2014 Oxfam report, titled "Working for the Few," found wealthy elites have co-opted political power to rig the rules of the economic game, undermining democracy. In doing so, they are creating a world where 85 richest people own nearly half of the world's wealth. The report found that 1% of the world's population control 46%, or $110 trillion of its wealth. The richest 10% possess 86% of the globe's wealth. The report also noted the growing public awareness of this power grab. It also found that increasing inequality is helping the ultra-rich undermine democratic processes and drive government policies that promote their interests at the expense of everyone else. So what this is saying is that the global system is rigged to the advantage of these few people who dictate the rules through their connections with national governments and global institutions, and through their powerful lobbying efforts. Now, most people do not see these shenanigans, these secret and dishonest activities and maneuvering behind the scene, but God sees it. Proverbs 20:23, "Unequal weights are an abomination to the Lord, and false scales are not good." You see, God hates unrighteous dealing, especially when the weak is taking advantage. The rich, especially when the rich is taking advantage of the poor. Increasingly, the global economic system is becoming a tool for these global elites to exert more control over people. It will reach its ultimate dictatorial control when the Antichrist takes over the reins of the system and imposes his 666 mark of the beast. That will be economic Babylon in its zenith, in its most powerful and terrifying moment. Then the sin of economic Babylon will be ripe for judgment. And that will be the time when God will judge the global economic system and destroy it. This is what we read in Revelation chapter 18. Now, I cannot preach this sermon without giving you some details, some understanding of Babylon, and telling you why it is mysterious, why it is not just called Babylon, it is called Mystery Babylon. So first, some basic and important facts about Babylon that is relevant to this sermon. We are told in Genesis chapter 10 that Babylon is one of the first cities to be built after the flood. You remember Noah's flood. After that, when society began, with Noah and the 3 sons and the family, when society began after the flood, one of the earliest cities that were being built is the city of Babylon. The builder and the ruler of the city of Babylon is Nimrod. He's known as the mighty hunter. Twice it was mentioned in one of the verses. The idea is that Nimrod is a very powerful and influential man. Nimrod was also the same person that built the Tower of Babel. Babel is Babylon. Babylon is Babel. Babylon and Babel is one and the same city. Now, many of you are familiar with the story of the Tower of Babel, but very little of it is understood. So let's read Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 to 9, about this mysterious tower, and then I will make a few comments about it. So Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 to 9. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. So can you see that this is advanced technology? People always think that the ancient people are so primitive. This is advanced technology. They have brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. And then they say, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. And let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men had built. And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of the earth, and they left off building the city. Notice that the Tower of Babel is left uncompleted. Therefore, its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there, the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. Now, this is a very short story. Not much detail is given, intentionally perhaps, I suppose, so that anything that is known of the Tower of Babel remains a mystery. It is a mystery. Why? Why does God want to keep that a mystery? Now, I can't answer that. Okay, there are mysteries in the Bible, like the mystery of the rapture, the mystery of the church to the first century Jews, the mystery of the mark of the beast. And so the Tower of Babel is one of those mysteries in the Bible. Now, what really happened in the Tower of Babel? Nimrod was leading the people in open rebellion against God. That's exactly what happened at the Tower of Babel. Nimrod was leading an open rebellion against God. He was not rebelling against God himself. He was leading the people into a rebellion against God. You see, in the creation mandate, God commanded humanity to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. But Nimrod opposed God to the face. And essentially, by building that city and the tower, Nimrod was saying, "No, we will build a city for ourselves and we will stay right here. We will not be scattered. We will also build a tower that reaches into the heavens." You see, Nimrod wanted to build a city. Nimrod wanted to build a society without God. He wanted to exclude God from the society that he was building. He wanted to have nothing to do with God at all. Now, this is the beginning of humanistic ideals. Humanism is a philosophy that is rooted in the idea that man can live without God. The man can create a utopia for himself. The man can create a fabulous society, an enlightened society without God. God was alarmed because this was not just the rebellion of individuals or prideful and rebellious men. This was mass rebellion. Mankind coming together in a corporate act of rebellion, as if they were shaking their fists collectively at God and saying, God, get out of our lives, get out of our society, get out of our nation. It must be one of those most painful moments, most sorrowful moments for God, to see His prized creation rejecting Him, to see His prized creation treating Him in that manner. It also spelled a dark future for humanity. So God acted by confusing the language, by confusing their speech, and scattering them throughout the entire earth. Now, this was the beginning of many languages. Now, because of this tragic event at the Tower of Babel, Babylon in the Bible becomes symbolic of a few things: human pride and hubris, human defiance and rebelliousness against God, and humanism. So that is Babylon. And I think we can understand that fairly easily. But why Mystery Babylon? Why don't just call it Babylon? Why call it Mystery Babylon? Why call it Babylon the Great? Why is it the mother of prostitute? Why is it the mother of earth's abomination? Now, these are not my words. These are the words that we have read earlier. Let me repeat them again. Okay, Revelation 17:5. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and of earth's abomination. So to those questions, there are several reasons to those questions that were asked earlier. Why is Babylon Mystery Babylon? Why is it called Babylon the Great? There are several reasons. First, through Nimrod's plan failed and the people were scattered, they carried with them the spirit of Babylon everywhere they migrated to. This spirit of rebellion and iniquity was passed down through the generation until the present time. The spirit of Babylon has infected the human race. Second, the collective will of humanity to defy God is just a one-dimensional understanding of the Tower of Babel. Most people understood it to be, it is the collective will of human being. It is humanism. It is man coming together to rebel against God. But there is a spiritual angle to that. Nimrod wanted the pinnacle of his tower to reach to the heavens. Realize that it is the word heavens in plural and not heaven. So this means that it does not just refer to the sky or to the universe, but also to the spiritual and supernatural realm. You see, just as Satan had tempted Adam and Eve earlier, hundreds of years before, Nimrod was instigated and abetted by the devil and the rebel angels. Third, Babylon was steeped in the occult. We read about that in Isaiah chapter 47. Because of time, we are not going to read those verses. But go back and read Isaiah chapter 47 and you read and some secular books, secular books, by that I mean secular history. And you realize that it is a place of the origin of the occult. This is where the occult practice of divination, sorcery, witchcraft, astrology, and enchantments began. And Babylon is also the birthplace of the world's religions, the most famous of which is the worship of Nimrod, who is worshipped as a sun god, and his wife Semiramis, who is worshipped as the moon goddess. Now these deities continue to be worshipped in different forms, with different names, in different cultures throughout history until this present time. According to Revelation, Babylon is infested with demons. Revelation 18:2. Fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place for demons, a horn for every unclean spirit, a horn for every unclean bird, a horn for every unclean and detestable beast. Fourth, Babylon is not just a city of brick and mortar. It was a system of government ran by kings who saw themselves as God or semi-gods. After the incident of the Tower of Babel, Babylon became a thriving city at different periods of history. It was the capital of the Babylonian Empire and the Neo-Babylonian Empire at the height of its glory under King Nebuchadnezzar, and we are familiar with this name because we read the book of Daniel. Under King Nebuchadnezzar, the city boasted of the hanging gardens of Babylon. It is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And the ancient city was reputed to have a sophisticated system of government, law, commerce, and banking. It was a thriving cosmopolitan city. It was a great city in the ancient time. I wonder whether you have heard of the Hammurabi Code. The Hammurabi Code. There are lawyers, a good number of lawyers in our church. I am sure you have heard of the Hammurabi Code. It was the earliest and most complete legal code of 282 laws. The code was instituted by the Babylonian king, Hammurabi, who lived in the 17th century BC. Now, put everything that I've said together. Mystery Babylon is a system of humanistic government with strong underlying occult influences that seeks to displace God from his rightful rule. Their ultimate goal is control and domination. I'd like to read that again. Mystery Babylon is a system of humanistic government with strong underlying occult influences that seeks to displace God from his rightful rule. Their ultimate goal is control and domination. So when you read of Babylon in Revelation, understand that it does not just refer to a city. It also refers to a system of government, a system of ungodly and unrighteous government that stands in opposition to God and his purposes. There are 3 different aspects of Mystery Babylons: the political Babylon, the religious Babylon, and the commercial Babylon. I prefer to use the term economic Babylon rather than commercial Babylon, but they mean one and the same thing. But understand that there are 3 different aspects of Mystery Babylon. Okay, let me repeat that. Political Babylon, religious Babylon, and economic Babylon. Now, to use contemporary jargon, this is the one world government, the one world religion, and the one world global, one world economic system. Taken as a whole, this is the newer order that you often hear the globalists talk about in their political discussions and in the news media. If you have been keeping your eyes open and observe, you would have observed that the globalists, heads of states, especially from the West, and representative of the United Nations, the UN, the World Economic Forum, WEF, European Union, EU, World Bank, IMF, International Monetary Fund, World Health Organizations, WHO, and other global institutions, they frequently talk about the New World Order and global governance in various spheres. Okay? I'm sure if you read the newspaper, if you read serious magazines, you'll keep hearing these terms being mentioned, the New World Order, and about global governance in various spheres. Now, for example, if you go to the UN website, you will see that one of the vision, one of their big goals that was set in the year 2015 is this UN plan of sustainable development. It is a goal to give everyone in the world, the nearly 8 billion people, to give everyone on planet Earth a legal identity. Now, how do they plan to do it? If you read the other parts of the website and these other global institution, you will realize that it is going to be through technology. Everyone will be given a digital identity. The legal identity is, in actual fact, a digital identity. You know where this is going. This is about the microchips and biometrics. This is about having these implants on your forehead and on your right hand. This is about global control and population control. Can you see? Mystery Babylon is rising from the shadows as we race towards the end of this age. Some of you will say, Pastor, isn't this a conspiracy theory? My answer to you is very simple. Yes, this is a conspiracy theory, except that it is true. It is a cosmic conspiracy theory. The actors are the devil, Satan himself, the rebel angels, or some of you prefer to call it the fallen angels, demons and humans. From the beginning at the Garden of Eden until today, Satan had been conspiring with mankind against God. Now please realize that the cosmic battle is not just fought in the lives of individual men and women, that which we are familiar, but also in the political, religious, and economic systems that control the world and human affair. The mystery is that this cosmic battle is fought in the shadows. It is fought in the theater of the realms of the spiritual and the supernatural. It is usually not overt, and therefore you cannot see it clearly. It can only be spiritually discerned. However, when it gets intense, the warfare will spill over into the natural realm. It will spill over into the physical realm. And you will see its manifestations in conflicts, wars, economic crises, natural catastrophes, and disasters of different kinds. Now, in recent times, we are beginning to see the overt manifestations of Mystery Babylon as it rears its ugly heads. I'm going to show you some real-life examples of Mystery Babylon at work in a global entity. But before that, let's read Revelation chapter 17, verses 1 to 6 for context. Revelation chapter 17, verses 1 to 6. Then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute, who is seated on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk." And he carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on the scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 7 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery: Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and earth's abomination. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of martyrs of Jesus. When I saw her, I marveled greatly. And then we turn to Revelation chapter 18, reading from verses 1 to 3. After this, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was made bright with his glory. And he called out with a mighty voice, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place for demons, a horn for every unclean spirit, a horn for every unclean bird, a horn for every unclean and detestable beast. For all nations have drunk the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality, and the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of a luxurious living." I want to point out a few things very quickly. First, Mystery Babylon is pictured as a woman, and she's known as the mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations. Now, prostitute here is a metaphor, a symbolism of a system that is not aligned with God. You see, in the Old Testament, those Israelites, those Jews that worship other God are considered, and not the Lord God Almighty, are considered to have prostituted themselves. So here it's referring to a system that is not aligned with God. It is an occult system. It is a man-made system. The phrase, the mother of prostitutes and earth's abomination, means that Babylon, Mystery Babylon, is the origin and the source of all wicked and unrighteous dealings in politics, false religions, and commerce. Second, the nations and kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality with Mystery Babylon. Now again, this is metaphorical. It is a picture of the secretive, shady dealings between Mystery Babylon and the kings. Who are these kings? Now these are powerful and extremely influential people. These are the globalists. These are the elites in our generation. Ultimately, this collaboration is all about power and control of global politics, religion, and commerce. In Revelation chapter 18, economic and commercial Babylon is in view here. Merchants get rich because of global trade and vast business opportunities. Third, the woman Mystery Babylon sits on a grotesque looking scarlet beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. Now this beast is the Antichrist. And this is a picture of the alliance and the cooperation between Mystery Babylon and the Antichrist. The Antichrist will collaborate with Mystery Babylon to take control of the world's system of government and implement also his 666 mark of the beast in his effort to control the world. Now finally, God will judge Mystery Babylon. Towards the end of chapter 17, now we're not going to read that, but we are told that the Antichrist and the kings that are aligned together, that are aligned with him, will turn against Mystery Babylon and kill her. They will turn against Mystery Babylon because they hated her. Their collaboration, their alliance was one of mutual benefit, but after making use of her, Antichrist and these kings destroy her. And the reference here of the destruction is the political and religious Babylon, not the economic Babylon. And then as we go to chapter 18 of Revelation, we have the prophecy of how God will judge and destroy the economic Babylon together with the 666 mark of the beast system. After this will come the battle of Armageddon, where Jesus Christ destroys the Antichrist and his armies. So, who and what is Mystery Babylon? Who and what is Mystery Babylon? It can be a city. Originally, it was a city of Babylon. Then it was Rome. And then in the last few decades, many scholars believe that New York City or the United States of America is Babylon. Some even believe that the apostate church, the Roman church, is Babylon. Now, all these fit into the description of Babylon. But remember what I said earlier, Babylon is not just a physical entity. Babylon is also a spirit. It is a system of a one-world government, a one-world religion, and a one-world economic system. Now let me show you another possible candidate that openly and blatantly shows itself to be the Mystery Babylon. It will shock you. I've done my research and checked my facts very carefully. So please do not bother with the fact checkers. In my opinion, many of them are biased. Many of them are not credible. They have their own viewpoints, and some of them are even sponsored. So don't bother about them, right? Don't bother about them. Okay? Let me show you this global institution that aligns itself, or rather say of itself, as the Mystery Babylon. Now, how many of you recognize this building? I wonder whether you've seen this building before. Now, this is the European Union building in Strasbourg, France. This EU building is modeled after 1563 painting of the Tower of Babel by the renowned Renaissance artist Peter Bruegel. Do you think that they look alike? Do you think these two buildings look alike? Well, they certainly look alike. But some of you will say, this is what conspiracy theories like to do. Seize on any similarity and then cook up a story. Now, I will show you that this is no conspiracy theory. In 1992, the EU released a poster promoting the union of the European nations. So that is a poster. This is the original poster, in print, of course. This is certainly a replica of Peter Bruegel's Tower of Babel. The similarity cannot be missed. There can be no doubt regarding the intents of the architect of the European Union. They see a parallel between the Tower of Babel and their efforts to construct a new united Europe. Besides, can you see, all right, continue to show the picture, can you see at the bottom right-hand corner a yellow box there? It has a slogan, Europe, many tongues, one voice. Europe, many tongues, one voice. What does it mean? Clearly, this is a counter-narrative to God's message to humanity at the Tower of Babel. God wanted mankind to disperse. God wanted mankind to have their own nations, to have their own tongues, to have their own nations, to have their own national boundaries. But the EU, in its slogan, calls for the union of the nations of Europe, calls for the European nations to come together. It is defiance to the biblical mandate. Like Nimrod, it is an open rebellion against God and His purposes for mankind, and His purposes for humanity, and His purposes for the nations. Now, here is another interesting point. Peter Bruegel's painting shows an uncompleted Tower of Babel. And then the EU poster also shows an uncompleted Tower of Babel. And you look at the crane. Can you see the crane, the construction crane? Let's go back to the picture. Can you see the construction crane? Let's go back to the earlier picture. Can you see the construction crane there at the foreground towards your right? Now, this is clearly a message to everyone looking at the poster that the Tower of Babel is uncompleted. And likewise, the building in Strasbourg looked like an uncompleted building. Look at the photo of the building from another angle. Look at the part on the right. It looks uncompleted, like the painting of Peter Bruegel. Exactly the same. The message is clear. The European Union is completing the unfinished task of Nimrod. Do not miss the significance. The EU is completing the unfinished task of Nimrod. They are making the declaration. Okay? We are not making this thing up. I'm not making this thing up. They are making the declaration. And then this British pastor by the name of David Hathaway, while producing a documentary and filming on-site in Strasbourg, could ask a European journalist, if she and the European Union Parliament understood the significance of their building. And the answer was an absolute yes. The officials, the representatives, the heads of states, those that congregate at the Parliament of the European Union, they understood exactly this symbolism of the European Union building. Now you may ask the question, aren't these European Union politicians and technocrats supposed to be atheists? Why would they use a biblical symbol? Why would they use a counter-biblical narrative to God's mandate if they don't believe in God, if they don't believe in the Bible? And my answer to you is, please don't be gullible. The fact that they do not believe in God doesn't mean that they don't believe in Lucifer. It doesn't mean that they don't believe in those rebel angels. It doesn't mean that they don't believe in the occult. And on the contrary, many of them believe in all these things. Now here is another proof of the anti-God and occult nature of what the European Union is engaged in. Look at this photo of a sculpture outside the EU building in Strasbourg. It is that of a woman riding on a bull. This is the motif chosen by the original founders of EU. A similar sculpture of a woman riding on a bull is also displayed as the main feature outside the European Union Council of Ministers building in Brussels, Belgium. And the same woman riding on a bull can be found on one side of the €2 coin. Now, what is this woman riding on the beast? What is this woman riding on a bull? Now, the woman riding on a bull imagery could be found in the Greek mythology. The chief god Zeus saw a beautiful Phoenician princess, and he lusted after her. And the princess name is, by the way, is Europa, and he lusted after her. So Zeus disguised himself as a big white bull and approached the princess. Then he took her to the island of Crete and there raped her. Very interestingly, the continent of Europe is named after this woman, Europa. And so in English, we call it Europe. Now, mythology is not necessarily untrue. Many of the Greek myths are stories of the gods, fallen angels, and their interactions with humans. They have their roots in Genesis chapter 6. But that is a topic for another time. For now, I want to draw your attention of this woman riding in the beast image with the woman in Revelation chapter 17. That woman that rides on the beast. The woman that has the that has the mystery Babylon, the words mystery Babylon emblazoned on her forehead. Do you see the similarity? I'm sure you can see the similarity. First, the EU uses the symbol of the Tower of Babel, which is part of the mystery Babylon narrative. And then it chooses to use the woman riding on the beast as its motif, the woman whose forehead is written the words mystery Babylon. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, do you think that this is a coincidence? Do you think that this is done in ignorance? Or do you think that this is intentional? It is very deliberate what the founders of the European Union intended to do. I think the answer is very, very clear. The EU is very explicit about its intention. It sees itself as mystery Babylon to complete the unfinished work of Nimrod, and that is to complete the Tower of Babel as it seeks to unite Europe. This is the spirit of mystery Babylon at work. Now let me conclude today's sermon, or rather part one of this sermon, by saying that what happened in Babel did not end there. The spirit of Babylon lives on. This anti-God, anti-Christ spirit is transmitted through successive kingdoms and empires until the present time. Mystery Babylon will rear its ugly head once again in a final rebellion against God towards the end of the last days. We are seeing the assembling of the jigsaw puzzles that will make Nimrod's shattered dreams and uncompleted work, an unfinished work, a reality. Just look at the political will of the globalist ruling class, comprising the outer-rich politicians, bureaucrats, technocrats. Just look at the advancement in science and technology that will make the control of commerce and all human lives possible. Consider the threat of virus pandemic, biochemical attacks, nuclear warfare, terrorism, economic crisis that will motivate people to willingly surrender their rights and liberties in exchange for security and protection. The convergence of all these factors will make the rebuilding of the metaphorical Tower of Babel a reality. It is fast becoming a reality. What Nimrod, the first globalist, failed to do. The globalists of these last generations, the very powerful, very rich globalists, will again try to accomplish. Do not underestimate their insatiable appetite to take control of the whole world. In the words of Troy Anderson, a Pulitzer Prize winner and investigative reporter, Mystery Babylon, the Bible's greatest end-time reader, reveals how an elite group of wealthy globalists and their interlocking networks of transnational corporations, international banks, government agencies, think tanks, foundations, and secret societies are working together to create a global government, cashless society, and universal religion, as predicted in the scripture. But their plan will fail because God will have the last word. The future has already been written. As revealed in Revelation chapter 18, chapter 17 and 18, God will bring about a collapse of Mystery Babylon and its global economic system in the near future. Fallen is Babylon the Great.